All right, we made it to another Sunday. That means we are back for another NASCAR DFS video. This is Andrew here with Fast Cars, Fast Money, and we are talking about Bristol Motor Speedway. So for today's race, we have 500 laps, and because of that, it's going to be a very high scoring slate. Your main focus is very similar to Martinsville last week. We really want to focus on those lap leaders. Place differential points are still important, yes, but if you don't get those lap leaders in your line, you better kiss that cash line goodbye. We are trying a new tire this week at Bristol as well, too. A lot of the drivers have said it's relatively a conservative tire, not really seeing much fall off. Tires may or may not matter that much. So because of that, track position here is really important. So don't be afraid to play some guys that start a little bit further forward in the field just because of that, tire lack of fall off that we are anticipating and it being a difficult track to pass. And with 500 laps, you're going to want those guys that are leading those laps. So when you try to think about, who's a good DFS play, who isn't, what's our player pool looking like, let's go through the driver by driver breakdown. So up top, you got Larson and Hamlin in the expensive range. You could also throw Blaney, Bell, and Byron in there as well too. Maybe not a shock, but you're going to see high interest on a lot of these guys. So Larson has just been unreal at Bristol. He won the O'Reilly race, or no, he didn't win the O'Reilly race yesterday. He dominated the O'Reilly race, but he lost at the very end. The Cup cars drive different than the O'Reilly cars, yes. But if we look at the next gen cars in the last four races here, he's led over like 900 laps. He has two wins, three top fives, three top tens. He's one of the best cars in the long runs in practice. He's the most expensive driver for a reason. So he's going to project well. The other guy that's going to project well is going to be Denny Hamlin. He also has a win here in the last four races, three top fives. He offers some place differential upside too, kind of like Larson does with the lap leading upside. So kind of get the nice combination of a little bit of place differential with the lap leading ability. If either of these guys get up front and start leading laps, they're more or less going to be taking over this race. But if I had to pick one driver that has the best chance of being a dominator, a lap leader, it's going to be Ryan Blaney. For a few different reasons. He starts on the pole, so he's able to hit the gas first when we come to the green flag. He was the best car in practice. He was the fastest in the 15, the 20, the 25, and the 30 lap average. Obviously, he backed that back up in qualifying. He also has two top fives and three top tens here in the last four races. So everything is saying that Ryan Blaney should go out there and lead laps and be a dominator. He is going to have a lot of ownership. So maybe you consider coming in a little bit underweight on him for tournaments, for that reason. But if you just had to start your line with one guy, most likely it's going to be Ryan Blaney today. The other guy that's really good at Bristol is going to be Christopher Bell. He won the truck race earlier this weekend. Really good track history here. He's also our most recent Bristol winner in the next gen cars. He has one win, two top fives, and four top tens over those last four races. Series best average finish of sixth over that sample size. And very similar to Hamlin and Larson, gives you a little bit of place differential upside with that lap leading ability. So if you can get, some combination of Larson, Hamlin, Blaney, Bell in your lines, I feel like you are off to a great start, at least for projections wise, how this race should go. Doesn't mean it's going to go that way, but if we just look at the history and what the numbers are telling us, they would say that Larson, Hamlin, Blaney, and Bell are all really, really good plays. Now, Byron's interesting. A lot of people are going to play him because he has a lot of that place differential upside. But if we look back at the main focus, it's really around lap leading. And Byron starting so deep in the field is a concern. There's a chance he goes a lap down early in stage one, and that really limits, potentially his upside for the day. Bristol numbers are okay. They aren't great. So I think I'm going to be a little bit underweight on him for tournaments and just say, hey, if I'm not playing Byron, that means I can probably play a Bell or Blaney in place of him. And those guys have a much higher ceiling, in my opinion. So Byron's going to project well, yes. He's really good for cash games, but for tournaments, I can understand coming in a little bit underweight on him. Elliott's a guy I'm just really not getting to a ton. I don't hate him by any means. I don't necessarily love him. He is our most recent winner on a short track. He does give you some place differential upside, being 18th on the grid. He has one top five, two top tens, average finish of 16th. Ty Gibbs is a guy that I want, not a lot of ownership, but I want, pretty good amount of ownership on him this weekend. He's been really strong at Bristol, almost 340 laps led over four races, a top five, three top tens, has that Dominator upside at a pretty cheap price. And also a lot of momentum coming into this weekend. So very high on Ty Gibbs. This could be the weekend he finally gets into victory lane. A guy I'm not getting to, though, is going to be Joey Logano. For whatever reason, he just really struggled at Bristol in the next gen cars. Average finish here of 20th over those four races. His practice times were better, but that track history is concerning for me. Briscoe is a nice pivot option. So if everyone's going to be playing Ryan Blaney, well, who's a guy that also starts up front that has a fast car, maybe the ability to go out front and steal some of those lap lead points from Ryan Blaney? Well, don't look too further than the second row and look at Chase Briscoe. Really strong average finish here of 8.5 in four races. Very affordable. If you play Briscoe over Blaney, it allows you to build a little bit more of a balanced lineup. So I like him a lot for tournaments. You could also make the same argument for Tyler Reddick. Now, Briscoe does have better track history than Reddick, but Reddick starts right on the front row with Blaney. So Blaney slips or has an issue or gets loose, Reddick's right there to take over and lead laps for a much, much cheaper price tag. But I really like Brad Keselowski, mainly with the place differential, upside that he brings. And Keselowski works with, an early lap leader. So you could pair him with a Briscoe or Reddick and fade Blaney. You could pair Keselowski, with Blaney or some of the other guys. But Keselowski's been pretty good here. It's also a nice way to give you some place differential upside and lower salary than Byron. He has two top fives in the last four races. Chris Buescher, a little bit more of a tournament option. Again, not really a guy I love, not really a guy that I hate. His track position suggests he should be able to stay near the front. He does have a top 10, an average finish of 14th over the last four races. So starting seventh, yes, there is some concern that he's going to lose you spots. He needs to kind of maintain that position, have a good day. But the RFK cars have shown the ability to do that. Hocevar is kind of in a similar position to Buescher. Pretty strong numbers in practice, which is very encouraging. He was actually top three across most of the lap averages. Like Buescher, track history wise, decent average finish here of 16th. He also has a top 10, kind of similar, starting position. So Buescher and Hocevar are a little bit more tournament plays. Buescher has better track history, but Hocevar looked a little bit better in practice. Kind of make that with what you will. Kyle Busch, I'm just really not getting to. Just struggled to play Kyle Busch in the RCR cars these days. Chastain starts sixth. Good track position, so maybe someone you consider for a lower owned tournament play. He's pretty affordable. He also does have two top tens in the last four races with an average finish of 13th. But starting sixth is kind of tough. Maybe Buescher and Hocevar are slightly a little bit safer, but he's kind of in that same boat. Ryan Preece, I do like him. Good price point. Pretty good on the short tracks. Does give you some place differential upside in 17th. Should be able to stay in the lead lap. Average finish here of 16th over those last four Bristol races. Bubba Wallace is kind of in the same boat. He does actually have a top five finish over our four race sample size that at least we are looking at. So a little bit more of a tournament option that I think will stay on the lead lap. He's having a great season so far this year. Cindric has really struggled at Bristol in the next gen cars. However, this week he did look a little bit better with practice in his qualifying efforts. But based off of that track history, I really don't want to go there. Barry's a guy that's kind of been surprising to me at Bristol. You would think with his background and being kind of a short track, driver, he would be better here. But, the numbers don't lie. He starts in the 20s and his average finish suggests that he will finish in the 20s. Alex Bowman's back. He's back in the car. And yes, there is still some concern with how healthy is he? Is he able to go through a whole 500 laps at Bristol Motor Speedway? This is a brutal race to come back to after missing multiple weeks with vertigo symptoms. However, they cleared him the race. So that tells me that he's healthy enough to go today. And if we look at his Bristol numbers, they're actually pretty good. He has a top five, three top tens in four races. Really cheap, good place differential upside, good equipment. He's going to want to bounce back and kind of prove that he belongs in this car. There is some concern, but maybe that all concern carries over to other players playing him today or not playing him today too. So I don't mind going to Alex Bowman. Zilic, it was good to see him back in victory lane yesterday, but when we get to the cup cars, he's still trying to just figure this out a little bit. Not really a lot of upside there. AJ Allmendinger's kind of in that same boat. He does have a top 10 finish, but outside of that kind of fluke top 10 finish, most of his results say that he should be in the 20s. I do like McDowell a lot for tournaments today. He was pretty strong in practice. He was top three, top five in most of the lap averages. His numbers at Bristol are actually relatively strong too. Average finish of 17th. So given both of his track history and his practice times, I really like him a lot for tournaments. I don't really know how much ownership he will have. I'm going to bump Eric Jones down to low. I meant to do that. He starts in the second half of the field, likely finishes around there. His Bristol results have been an average of about 24th over those last four races. Suarez historically has not run well at Bristol, very poor results, and that is a big concern starting 13th. However, this year has been a little bit of a different type of story and a little bit of a different type of Suarez. So he's been running a lot better than anticipated. But given the poor track history here, I just don't really want to go there in DFS. I'd rather take a flyer on maybe Zane Smith, kind of an aggressive GPP option. He does have the track position, one top five with an average finish of 20th over those four races. So he should be able to contend and maintain a lead lap finish, depending on how the race plays out or the strategy or where the cautions fall and, how chaotic it or non-chaotic it is. He should be able to, maintain and fight for, a top 15 finish today. Well, if you're playing up for all those guys, you are going to need some guys down here. I would prefer some of these guys that start deep that really can't lose you points, or some of them like the McDowells of the world that have good track history and should be able to give you a good finishing position. So, John Hunter Nemechek is kind of that guy that starts deep in the field, not really going to project super well, but he starts so deep and he's so cheap, it's hard for him to really lose points. He also had some decent finishes here last year. SVG's kind of in that same boat as John Hunter Nemechek. Hasn't been really a great track for him, but we've seen he's just continuing to improve on all the non-road courses that every time he comes back to them. So again, he's cheap, starts deep. You don't really need a whole lot out of him. I'm really not getting to Austin Dillon, Noah Gragson, Ricky Stenhouse, just not really a lot of upside there. Todd Gilliland would be a guy that I would target in the back. He's cheap, good place differential upside, more of a pure attrition type of play if you're building a stars and scrubs type of lineup, or you just need a punt option down here. Todd Gilliland makes a lot of sense to me. I also think Cole Custer and Ty Dillon are doable. Maybe I'll bump them up to medium interest. I would prefer Gilliland over Custer and Dillon, but they are kind of under, wrapped under a blanket. Riley Herbst, it was crazy to see a guy in the 4K range start in the front two rows. But it should be very difficult for him to maintain this track position. That is a big concern for me. And then I think Ware and Fincham are both just too slow, and I think there's better attrition plays. So for me, really, it's just start with your lap leaders. Try to get at least two to three of those drivers in your line that you think can lead laps. And then from there, you're really just kind of rounding out your line with either good finishing potential plays, guys that give you some place differential upside, or maybe a combination of the two. So that'll do it for the Bristol video. If this has been helpful to you guys, dropping a like, a comment on the video, hitting the subscribe button is always greatly appreciated. If you guys want access to this spreadsheet, reference it as you build your own lines. It's over on X. That's at FastCarsFM. Otherwise, that's going to do it. We will catch you guys next weekend and enjoy the race.